In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the thermostat and housing assembly on this Volvo XC90. This will be located underneath your intake manifold, which we actually do not have to remove for this job. So let's get started. Now, we will not be draining the coolant through the radiator because no matter how much we drain, it'll always make a mess when we disconnect the thermostat. So what I want to do is remove this splash shield so that the coolant can drain directly into my collection bucket when I disconnect the hose from the thermostat. So use a 10mm socket and remove all the bolts that hold this on. Pull the shield away and place a collection bucket right underneath the passenger side front of the engine. And now if you look underneath the intake, because this is the non-turbo model, you have all of the space you need to get to your thermostat right here. So what we're going to do first is unplug this electrical connector. Now you can reach the locking tab through here, press it and lift it up. However, if you have a long screwdriver or a pry bar, you can help yourself out through the intake runners. Just press on the tab and lift the connector. Leave that wire right there. Now you'll see this hose right here, which is right below where we just disconnected that electrical connector. It's got a 7mm headed hose clamp. Let's remove the hose clamp, or loosen it up at least, so we can pull the hose off of the thermostat housing. Okay, this hose clamp is loose now. You can slide it out of the way. And now very gently, if you reach in with a pry bar through the intake runners, you can usually just pry this hose right off. All right, we'll let this drain. Now we have to remove this clip that locks in the radiator hose. It's typically easiest to do with a pick. Right here, there's a slot, or I guess a cutout, where you can insert your pick and lift the clip straight up and out. There we go. Now the clip you can remove if you want to. I will, just so I can make sure it doesn't fall down in here, but you can also just leave it partially attached if you'd like to. And now, wiggle this hose and slide it off. It may be somewhat stuck in there, so you can very gently pry it right here, but be very careful not to break the plastic on the hose. All right, there it goes. Perfect. Set this aside. Now with a T30 socket, let's remove the 4 bolts holding the thermostat housing onto the engine block. We'll break them all free and then finish removing them. There are 2 on top and 2 underneath that are a little more difficult to see. And now you can remove the thermostat assembly. There it is. Clean up the mounting surface of the thermostat assembly, and for me it's actually in great shape. There's no corrosion, no debris, and what I'm going to do is just take a clean rag and wipe any of the coolant off that may have drained on here. If yours had corrosion or debris, you take a razor blade and clean it up very gently. Careful, because this is aluminum, so you don't want to use anything that'll gouge it. But once again, my surface is nice and clean. Now take the new assembly and line it up. Hold it, have a bolt ready to start on, just so it can stay somewhat positioned, and then you can start in the rest of the bolts. Here's a trick for the lower ones. If you put a piece of tissue or paper towel between the bolt and the socket, it'll hold it on a lot better, unless you have a magnetic socket. But this way you can guide it on with your extension and slide it right into the threads. And of course, turn it on by hand. You want to make sure that these don't cross thread. And now let's snug them up. I'm going to snug them in a cross pattern. That way I make sure that this gasket around the thermostat housing seats evenly. Okay, so they're all bottomed out and snugged. Now, because I can't fit a torque wrench in here, I'm going to just tighten them up with my ratchet. I'm going to go about 1/8 of a turn, at most a quarter, on top of what I already did. So basically just feel it out. The torque on these is only 10 Newton meters. It converts to 7.4 foot-pounds. That's not a lot at all. So if you have a small ratchet like this one, just give them about 1/8 to a quarter turn. That should be plenty tight. Just feel it out. All right, those are all tightened up. Now let's reconnect the radiator hose. Now on the old thermostat, sometimes there is a piece of the hose that sticks on here. On mine it did, and it's actually that little ring that locks in the O-ring from the hose. So I just pulled it off of the old one and stuck it right back in here. You want to make sure that you do that. Otherwise, not only could the hose pop off, it might not seal up to begin with. Now, slide this hose right on and make sure that you push it on all the way so it can be fully seated. Now, it is clocked, so if you feel that it doesn't line up, twist it, and then it'll slide right in. All right, that went in all the way. It is very important that you bottom it out completely. Otherwise, the clip can't lock in. Even if it does go over or seems like it does, it will not be locked in and will pop off under pressure. So now let's put the clip back in to lock this hose in. Just slide it right back. And double check it. Pull on the hose to make sure that it will not slide off. Get this hose reattached. You want to make sure you push that on all the way. I pushed that on a little too far. It's got a little tab right here, and the hose has a cutout. If that lines up and seats, that's perfectly fine. Grab your hose clamp and line it up. Now this part will be a little bit tricky just because if you let go of it, it will fall down. So you'll have to kind of hold it and tighten it at the same time, unless you can somehow get it close enough by hand to where it will stay on here. Actually, it looks like I can do that. As you tighten this, it is very important that it's properly positioned. You want it in between the end of the hose and the end of the fitting. Basically halfway so it can clamp on properly and seal up. With these clamps, once you start feeling a little bit of pressure, you want to stop and check them. If it starts squeezing the hose, stop right there. Otherwise, you will over tighten it. Mine has squeezed the hose and it is pretty much flush with it. I'm actually going to back it off a little bit. I feel that it is a little over tightened, even though it is still easy to turn. I don't like how much it squished the hose. So I'm just going to give it a couple turns back like this. And at this point, mine is fully tightened. Now take your wiring harness and plug in the coolant temperature sensor again. This one may have a slightly different orientation than the original. Make sure that clicks, and that's installed. Let's put this shield back up now. And snug up all the bolts. They're only holding onto plastic, so don't tighten them too much. Now open up the coolant tank cap, unthread it, and set it aside. I'm going to put a funnel on here, and now you want to fill the cooling system until it reaches the max line, which is this split in the tank right here, and it stops bubbling. If it's still bubbling, let it sit here and bubble and continue adding to keep it at the max line. Once it has stopped doing that naturally, we're going to start the engine. Have the heat set to the maximum heat temperature, but with the blower on low, just so you can feel that there is heat coming through the heater core. Keep an eye on the level of the coolant throughout this process to make sure it doesn't go too low. And once the engine has reached operating temperature, shut it off, let it cool down. With everything bled and the coolant topped off, put the cap back on, just thread it until it stops spinning, and then snug it. And there we go, job is done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.